Hi, welcome back. Right, we've now got these engine cases all painted, looking quite decent, I think. What we've done, if you remember in one of the earlier videos, I said we will need to clean up these mating surfaces around here. That's for your crankcase halves, and also on the top here, around there, that's where your cylinder head will sit, and that's where your intake manifold will go. Clean all the paint off those so they're all nice and smooth. I've already done that while we're sitting here. We've also done it with the other half of the engine, as you can see, all nicely painted. And again, the mating surfaces all around here, that's all nice and clean. Also nice and clean inside where your crank bearing's going to go. Make sure, because it can be a bit difficult if you've got paint on there getting your new crank bearings in. Now, before we start putting this back together, what we've got to do is we need to start, we've got to clean these threads out, because you will have paint in those. So when everything goes together, just clean out all the threads. Very simple. A lot of threads on these scooter engines, they'll be M6 by 1mm. That's an M6 tap with a 1mm pitch. And all you do, straight down there, and just spin the threads down. Okay, just make sure that the threads are all nice and clean. Now, it will either bottom out. You can see in the side here, these are the bottoms of the threads. So they will either bottom out like that one is, or they will just go straight through into the crankcase. I have known a few that just go straight through. Okay, so there's one. There's two. All this will just aid the putting things back together. Okay, so we clean these up. Okay. When you come to the bottom of the thread, just let it pinch, yeah? Don't be giving loads of it, because you'll snap the tap, and then you'll have a hell of a game trying to either get it out or having to re-drill it. And you can see on there, there's a bit of crap coming out on the tap. That's what's in the threads and on the bottom of the holes. So just give that a clean off. And then just go through all of them. So we'll carry on doing all of this, and when they're all done, we'll be back. Okay, so we've got all the 6mm holes tapped out. What we find on this particular engine anyway is there are two other threaded hole sizes. We have these two here, which are M8. Those will be threaded M8 by 1.25 pitch. Those, I believe, are for the main stand. And then, when you come to these cylinder head bolts here, that's where your cylinder head will push down onto, those are an M7 by 1mm. Okay, now if you haven't got a thread gauge and you want to know how to find out the pitch of these threads, if you've got the gauge, what you can do, let's hope this focuses, maybe not, but what you can do is you can get the tap, you can mate like that, the threads on the tap on the threads into the bolt. And the threads in the tap should fit perfectly into the threads on the bolt. If you just want to double check that, what you can do is you can just move it over so that the tips of the thread on the tap and the tips of the thread on the bolt are touching each other, and you will see perfect diamonds. Okay, so that's an easy way of gauging up your bolts. So we'll just Take that one off of there. Oh, come out, you bugger. Okay, we'll do these 7mm, but I'm going to need the other holder, I think. I don't think that one's going to go in there. Nah, that one won't fit in there. There we go. That's the other tap holder. Straight into there. And just run those down. Okay. Like that. Again, don't force it. If it's getting too tight, just back it off one turn. Okay. And then go again. Okay. What that will do, that will clear any swarf or dirt out of the thread that you're running down. Saves everything building up down the bottom. And it should end up any dirt going into the flutes in between these cutting threads. Okay, so we'll just spin that down all the way down to the bottom. Blimey, these are deep holes. There we go, we've reached the bottom. Again, don't be oiking on it because you don't want to snap the tap in the bottom of there. Because if you do, you ain't never going to get that out. You may as well get onto eBay and get yourself another engine case. Okay, so I'll take that out. One more to do in there. All of this just to make it just a little bit easier when all your bolts go back in when you're reassembling the engine. Okay, and there's the bottom. Okay, so that's those. Now, we've got all of those threads done. That means bolts are going to go in easy. Then we can always add those with a little bit of copper grease. Just need to do those 2 bolts there for the stand. Do the smaller half. And then we'll have a look at putting the bearings and seals in. Okay, so we've got all the holes tapped out now. All around here, everything, all of these M7s, M8s, M6s, all tapped out nice and clean, but now you need to blow it out with a bit of compressed air down these holes, gets any crud out the bottom that you've pushed down. Okay. The last thing you want is crud in the bottom of the holes, blocking up your threads. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, earlier I said sometimes bolts can go through the entire crankcase. If you have a look on this intake manifold, these 2 bolts here will actually go all the way through the case. So if I just put that in there like that, you can see that the threads come out through the bottom. Yeah. Now, if you put 2 longer bolts through there, when you refit the variator on here, if the bolt's too long, it could end up fouling the edge of the variator, damaging that, or it could damage the belt, do something else. So when you're reassembling it, just make sure that you use the right bolts in the right place. Okay, so that's that. Now, let's get these bearings in. These are the crank bearings. Now, we've got new bearings and we've got new seals. What we're going to do first is we're going to compare these new bearings to the old ones. So we'll just take those out. Okay, nicely done. All wrapped up nice and they're lovely. Yeah. No movement in there. Absolutely silent. And if you compare that to the other ones, I can hold it. It's the old one. There's a new one. Completely different. So, what are we looking at? Do they look about the same there? Yep. And they're about the same there. Yep. And the hole down the middle looks good. Right, so we know we've got good bearings. Now, what I like to do, and again, I will stress doing this, there are different methods for putting crank bearings into engines. In scooters, what people like to say is put your bearings in the freezer overnight, and warm up your crankcase, you know, chuck it in the oven, you know, to expand the metal just that little bit. As I said in an early video, you ask your mother, Mum, can I put my engine case in the oven? Your mum's going to tell you where to get off. So this is my way. I like to use, when I'm redoing an engine like this, I like to use gearbox oil. Now, all this surface in here is all nice and clean. That's where your bearing's going to sit. So what we're going to do, we're just going to put a bit of gearbox oil in there, like that. We're going to slap it around all over the place. Okay, so we've got a nice bit of oil in there. That'll help with the slide. And then over the new bearing, yeah, put some in there, give it a good roll round, yeah, and all around the edge of the bearing as well. Okay, so now we've got slidey surfaces both ways. Now, me personally, it doesn't matter if you do this, it's just the way I do it. The writing on the outside of the bearings, I put so you can see them. So as soon as you take them out, yeah, you know exactly what you're looking for. It saves trying to batter the bearing out and then you've got to read it to get a new one. So yeah, all that crap. Now, we need to tap that bearing down. So, where's my old truck? Now, as you're knocking that bearing into there, you're only tapping it and you're only going to hit it on the outside. Don't hit this inside race here because that will damage the ball bearings and that race. You just want to tap this outside edge, okay? All the time, keep an eye on it and just making sure that the bearing goes in at a straight, not an angle. Okay, so you can always gauge it up. I like this little toffee hammer, it's good. Okay, into there like that. How's it looking? Looks a bit high that side. Okay, and have a look around there. Okay, looks nice. Okay, now it looks like the bearing is going in quite easily, yeah, and it looks to be nice and level. Now, from that point, we've just got it started. It's now looking nice and square. What I tend to use now is an impact socket, yeah, simply because when you do that, yeah, it acts like a bearing driver, okay, and the size of the socket should match up as close as possible to the edge of there, yeah. And what we can do, we can just put that on top of the bearing like that. Where's my old trusty? There she is. And you can get your copper hammer, and we're not going to go bang, 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 bang and smack the hell out of it. What we're going to do is we're just going to give it little taps, yeah. Now when you strike it, yeah, it's not bang, 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 yeah. You're going to hit this section on the edges, yeah, like that. Not straight on in the middle, on the edges, because those edges are on the edges of the bearing. Okay, little bit there, little bit there, little bit there, little bit there, and all the time that will be knocking the bearing down nice and square. Okay. Makes a very easy job. Okay, and every now and again just have a nice little look, make sure that the bearing's still going down nice and square. Okay, and what you'll find is that as you come to the bottom of this recess, yeah, in the back there, yeah, you'll see this inner race of the bearing sit flush on this flange, yeah. But what will also happen is the note will change as well, yeah. So at the moment you're hearing this, yeah. Listen for the note when we get down to the bottom. Did you hear it change? Different sound now, isn't there? Now that tells me, without even looking, I now know that that bearing is flush on the other side. See that? Nice and flush on the other side. And nice and free, no notchiness, yeah. And the other good thing is, you haven't split the case. Okay, that's the way I do it. So that's one half done. So let me just move that out the way, and then we'll come onto the other one. Okay, now this one, it's a funny shape because we've got this sticking out. So let's get it nice and flat. Nice piece of wood. Actually, it's a piece of old roof joist. Okay, now when we put that on there, we're still a little bit. So as we're tapping that bearing in there, yeah, we see we're rocking. We want to get it nice and flat. There. Now you see, we're off the edge of the block. Yeah. That bearing, nice and firm. It's not going to bounce. We're not going to put any stress on these joints here or these here. Okay, so nice and flat. So, bit of engine oil or gearbox oil, as I like to use, in there. Get the other bearing. We know they're both the same size, these bearings, both sides. Okay, righting side up. Okay, put some oil over it. Yeah, a nice coating. Put that into position. Okay, and now we're going to level it up. We know where, well, we can see where the high sides are. Again, I've got high sides at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. So we'll just little tap. Okay. What we're going to do is going to eye it up. Yeah, looks like it's going in nice and square. Okay, so only hitting the outside edge of the bearing. Okay, couple of little taps, around each side of it, yeah, and have a look at it. This bearing is going a little bit off, so one of those there, yeah, okay. So we'll take that down, that's levelling up nicely. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Yeah, that looks nice and level in there. So again, from this point, we'll go back to the socket on the outside of the bearing, yeah. Okay, and just work your way around it. Okay, constantly checking that the bearing is still going in nice and square. Not whacking it, just tapping it. Okay, and only on the outside of the bearing. Okay, and that bearing's going down quite nicely. Yeah, looks good. Okay, now we're coming close to it, so listen for the change in the note. Hear that? Okay, let's have a look. Has it gone to the bottom? Looks good to me. I don't know how well you lot can see it, but it looks to me like it's gone quite nicely right down to the bottom. Okay, so just a little bit. Sounds good. Sounds good. That's great. And there you go. That's it. New crank bearings. Yeah, all lovely. None of that horrible notchiness that we had in the other ones. And yeah, like I said, that's the way I do them. And no breaks in the crankcase, which is what you want. We'll move on now just to get the crank in, and we'll start tightening things up.